How do you spell unfair? MacNolia Cox and the National Spelling Bee. MacNolia Cox was no ordinary kid. Her idea of fun was reading the dictionary. From A to Z, she learned words' meanings and spellings. She loved to read, study, and spell. In 1936, the 8th grader won her school spelling bee. After MacNolia passed a 50-word written test in an oral competition, she advanced to the Beacon Journal's newspaper's citywide bee. That April evening, MacNolia faced 50 of the city's best spellers. 3,000 people jammed the Armory in Akron, Ohio. Can you spell nervous? With butterflies in her stomach and a lump in her throat, MacNolia listened to pronunciations and definitions before spelling each word. MacNolia got ruled out. Teary-eyed, she got her coat and hat and prepared to go home. But someone urged her to stay. Due to an error, the judges brought her back. MacNolia correctly spelled daftwit, pretentious, brusque, abstemious, gradiate, felicitate, and apoplexy. Can you even pronounce those words? In the final rounds of the bee, MacNolia battled back and forth with John Huddleston until he tripped upon a word, sciatic. After spelling the word that John had missed, MacNolia had just one more word to the title, voluble. With those 7 letters, MacNolia became the first African American to win the Akron Spelling Bee. Her prize was $25 and a trip to the National Spelling Bee in Washington, D.C. Can you spell surprised? At events all over Akron, MacNolia was the guest of honor. Backstage at the Palace Theater, the spelling dynamo met dancer and actor Bill Bojangles Robinson and jazz musician and composer Fats Waller. At the Akron City Club, she dined with local bigwigs. African American clubs held fundraisers, and Black churches took up offerings to help her with her travel costs. People also prayed for her. Akronites now mentioned MacNolia Cox in the same breath as the boxing champion Joe Louis and the track star Jesse Owens. Can you spell famous? Letters and telegrams poured in from far and wide. MacNolia's school community was rooting for her too. Her teacher, Miss Grieve, bought her a new dress, and a man gave her a beautiful necklace. MacNolia also received 2 dictionaries to study. She spent 3 periods a day prepping for the National Bee. She memorized 100,000 words. Can you spell dedication? At Akron's Union Station, a military band in a crowd of thousands saw the spelling bee champ off to Washington. For her first train ride, MacNolia got on board with her mother, Miss Grieve, and Mabel Norris, a reporter from the Beacon Journal, the newspaper that sponsored the Akron Bee. This is the most fun I've ever had, said MacNolia. Can you spell excited? But she was about to face some hard truths. Can you spell discrimination? Do you even know what it means? MacNolia would soon find out firsthand. On the train, MacNolia sat in a coach open to black and white passengers, but when the train reached the Maryland state line, she and her mother were forced to move to the blacks-only car. Back then, segregation was the law in the South. When MacNolia arrived in Washington, she and her mother had to stay with a black doctor because the hotel where the other spellers stayed was for white customers only. MacNolia and her mother couldn't even ride the main elevator at the spelling bee banquet. They had to climb the stairs. Inside the banquet hall, they were seated away from the other spellers and their families. She and Elizabeth Kennedy from Plainland, New Jersey, were the first African American students to compete at the National Spelling Bee since the 9 newspapers founded the competition in 1925. The 2 black girls had to enter the ballroom through a back door and were seated at a card table apart from the other spellers. Can you spell racism? Though second-class treatment met her at every turn, MacNolia couldn't afford to get rattled. She had to concentrate and to believe in herself. She remained calm and nailed word after word. Can you spell focus? The judges threw harder and harder words at the spellers. In the audience, Miss Grieve, MacNolia's teacher, bit her lip. One by one, the competitors fell. Elizabeth Kennedy misspelled appellation and placed 10th. When Doris Rubin misspelled acceptability, MacNolia advanced to the final 5. The judges, mostly from the segregated South, couldn't seem to stump her. Then they threw a curveball, a word that MacNolia hadn't studied. Nemesis, she answered. Nemesis. MacNolia's teacher and the newspaper reporter protested. They argued that the word nemesis was not on the official list. Furthermore, in MacNolia's dictionary, the word was a proper noun, referring to a Greek goddess, and thus not acceptable. The judges stood by their decision. Can you spell unfair? MacNolia was out. But what an achievement. She made history by becoming a finalist in the National Spelling Bee. The spellers spent the rest of the week sightseeing. They visited the White House and the Washington Monument. MacNolia saw stamps being printed at the Bureau of Engraving. Can you spell amazed? At the end of the whirlwind trip, MacNolia took home a $75 prize and was honored with a big homecoming parade. Can you spell proud? Even though she didn't win the championship, MacNolia had proven that African American students are as smart as anyone and can compete and excel when given a level playing field. That was MacNolia's triumph.